So I am going to try and do quite a short talk today, and as Dave said before, that's probably by popular demand. But so I'm setting the timer going. Here we go. Right. So today we are looking at Rahab, and I know I'm going to keep getting my words muddled. So I apologise in advance with Rahab and rehab because they're not easy when you're trying to use them both, right? So if I call Rahab rehab, and I refer to rehab as Rahab, you know what I mean. So let's have a look. The story that I'm referring to today was set in Jericho, which you can see on the map. Maybe you can. The United Kingdom's kind of right up on the top left there, and you cross kind of southeast across Europe, just into Asia, just past Turkey, into that area of Israel and Palestine and that sort of part of the world. Same part of the world then as it is now. In fact, they've got about 20 archaeological digs in Jericho which show different stages of life in Jericho across those ages, right back to this time, which was about 3,500 years ago. It's about 2,300 miles away and about 3,500 years ago. And she must be something if here we are in Darlington with that distance and that time span to still be talking about it, right? She must be worth talking about, and I hope today you'll find out that she is. So moving on. You'll find the story in the Old Testament. The Old Testament is that bit of the Bible, the main bit in terms of size, which comes before Jesus was born. Okay, so it's all the stuff that happened with God in the Israelites, the people from Israel who were his chosen family. It's in that part of the Bible that we're looking at. This is when she lived, so she lived long before Jesus. Okay, and you can find in the book of Joshua, chapter 2, right through to chapter 6 is where Rahab appears. Now, I did send it round in a week and put it on Facebook, so I'm not going to read that much of the story. I'm just going to give a quick overview of it. Alright? So, God had a chosen people called the Israelites, and he had sent them to a land that he had promised them to live in. And that sounds nice and easy, right? God sends some people to go into this lovely land, and you think that's easy. And then God says to these people, but you're going to have to fight to get in that land. And you think, oh God, I didn't know that was part of the deal, right? You're sending us this land, you've promised us this land, but we've got to fight to get in it. Because God always asks us to do something, almost always. When he's got a plan, he always does it in partnership with people, or almost always. There's usually something for us to do. So it's a bit like Embrace Church and Messy Church, right? We believe as a church we've been called to go do some work into Firth Moor. We believe God's got some brilliant things to do in that area of town. But do you know what? We've got to put the work in. Just like the Israelites had to go and battle to take this promised land that God had promised them to live in, we've got to battle and fight. Now it might be a different kind of battle, hopefully it will be, a different kind of fight, but actually there's something for us to do just like it was for them. Okay? Even when the enemy looks strong, if God has said, go and do that, even if the enemy in the opposition looks strong, if he said do it, then it will be victorious. Okay? So I just really feel this from a couple of people in the room. I don't know who, I just had a real sense of this when we were worshipping with Mike there. Well led, Mike, by the way, it was great. That there were some people who are right in the middle of a battle now. I have no idea what it is. And it's, you know, at the start of it, I had a real sense that you're in the middle of the battle and you feel like giving up. Let me just say this. Don't give up. Keep going. If God has said it, you keep going. It might be hard, it might be rough, you might want to quit, but keep going. So, God had promised this city, amongst other cities, the city of Jericho where Rahab lived, he had promised it to the Israelites, okay? Now, Joshua, who was in charge of the Israelites at that time, used his brain. Yes, God's with him, but he used his brain. Sometimes I think as Christians we can fairly be accused of not using our brains. God gave us a brain to use. So Joshua sent 2 spies into the land first, because we are talking about a real battle where people die, right? He sent 2 spies into Jericho to check out what the land was like. He knew God was with them. He knew God would give them victory, but he still used his brain so they could play their full part in carrying that out. The spies were in Jericho, and Rahab recognized them as Israelites. She knew they were spies. And more than that, she knew they were spies sent by God. And Rahab was really smart, really intelligent, really perceptive, really discerning. Because she thought, wow, here's my chance. Okay? She said to the spies, I know who you are. And more to the point, I know who sent you. I know you're Israelites, and I know God's with you. And the people in Jericho, you can read the story in Joshua 2. The people of Jericho were in fear of the Israelites. Or to put it more accurately, they were in fear of the God of the Israelites, because they knew the story of the Red Sea and the parting of the Red Sea. Okay? They knew that story. They knew that the Israelite God had parted the Red Sea for the Israelites to walk through, and then when the Egyptians started walking through it to capture them, that he closed the sea on them. That happened about 40 years prior to this story. That event filled the Jericho people full of fear. Okay? Rahab knew that. And she said, I know your God did that. She not only believed in their God, she believed their God was powerful. And she said, if you spare my family, okay, I will spare you. And the reason she said that to the spies, the two spies who'd gone in prior to the Israelites going in, was that the king of Jericho, cities tended to have their own kings in those days, the king of Jericho had also heard that there were two Israelite spies in his land, and he'd sent his men to kill them. Okay? She hid them in her house, on her roof actually, and she lied. She lied to the king's men from Jericho and said, oh yes, they were here, but now they've gone. All the while they were upstairs on the roof. As a result of that, they said to her, when our army come in, when the Israelite army come in, if you hang a red robe, a crimson robe out of your window, and you all stay in your house, we will take the whole city, but we will spare your house. Okay? And she agreed. Let me just make this very clear. She didn't agree because she felt sorry for the two Israelites. She didn't agree even because she thought, I can save myself here from the Israelite army. She agreed, and you read the story today in black and white, she agreed because she said, I know that your God, the Lord, has given you this land. She knew it was going to happen. She knew no matter how strong the army of Jericho was, they could not stop God's plans when the Israelite army came. The other thing to mention about Rahab, of course, if you've read the stories, you will know, and I'm sorry that there were some younger children in the house, so I'm choosing my words very carefully, but she was a prostitute. Yeah, that's right. The great hero of this story was a prostitute. The lady who we're reading about today was a prostitute. God used her mightily. So, what can we learn from Rahab in that story? Well, on each slide I've got some little film scenes, right? So I will mention the films in case you don't know what they are. Dead Poets Society. If you do know, please do shout out. Let's keep it interactive. You may have seen the film. And the teacher, played by Robin Williams, great film. He was like this inspirational teacher who would inspire his students to be the best they could. And he would say to them, seize the day. Seize the day. Let me tell you, Rahab seized the day. She seized her opportunity. She knew who God was. She knew his plan for the Israelite people to take over Jericho. She knew it couldn't be stopped. And she wanted in on that. She wanted to be part of that great story. She could have sided with Jericho. She chose to side with God. Remember, Jericho was her people. Really, she should have sided with them in some ways. But she knew God was greater and bigger than them. She seized the day. She took her chance. She was a prostitute living in this wild city. But she wasn't just a prostitute. Like I said already, she was smart. She was clever. She was perceptive. She'd heard the stories about what God could do. She'd wanted a part of this. I wonder, had she been waiting all these years for her moment with God? And this was her moment. I just wonder if that was the case. It seems to have been that way when you read the story. It's like she was just waiting for opportunity to side with God. Two things I want to mention there. We can look at people, I do this. We can look at people and say, such and such, just a drunkard. Rahab, just a prostitute. Such and such, just a gossip. Let's not be like that. That's not how God looks at people. Let's not label people and downplay their potential. Let's look at people through God's eyes. People then would have said, Rahab, just a prostitute. Nothing more. Listen, Rahab's mentioned 3 times in the New Testament. Thousands of years later, in the New Testament, she's mentioned 3 times. Once in James and once in Hebrews. Why? Because of her great faith for what she did for God. She's not remembered for being just some prostitute. No, she's remembered in the New Testament for this great faith, this great act she did. That's how we should look at people. Not, oh, they're just this or just that, but what could God do through them? Who are they? Let's find out the best, not their worst. You know, you read Hebrews 11 and it's well known in the Bible for being this chapter full of the heroes of faith. People like Abraham, people like Moses, people like Noah, people who we all kind of think about as being like people we should aspire to and be like. And in that same chapter, for the exact same reason of being a woman of faith, it mentions Rahab. She's right there with the greats. And perhaps even more amazingly, in Matthew 1, you read the family line of Jesus. So it's got Jesus' mummy and daddy, and then the grandparents, and so on back. And who do you see in Jesus' direct family line? Yeah, Rahab the prostitute. Think of that. God was not ashamed of her. God didn't try and scratch that bit out of the Bible. No, he let it be in. In fact, he chose for it to be in. Some woman who the world would have looked at as bottom of the pile. But God's got her in the Bible, recognises she was a prostitute, and not only does he commend her for her faith, he says, look, my son Jesus, the perfect one, came from that family line. Think of that. Just think of that. We should never put people down for what they are. That's not to say they might not do some things like that, but we should always be looking at what they can be. She took her chance. Boy, did she take her chance. She put herself right in the line of God, right in God's good books, if you like, right in God's plan. She saved herself, she saved her mother, her father, and her brothers. She did it. She didn't just talk about it. Anyone know this film? It's from Love Actually. Now, I'm a expert on rom-coms, obviously, because I'm married and I have to watch them. But I do like Love Actually. And there's this kind of guy in Love Actually called Colin. This is him on the right. And, like, he just can't get a girlfriend, right? For love nor money. I mean, I've been there. You know, and he said, in America, there are more women than there are men. So if I move to America, I've got more chance of finding a girlfriend because there are more girls than there are boys. I'm going to go to America. And all his mates were like, yeah, whatever. Guess what? In the film, he went to America and he got a girlfriend. He didn't just talk about it. He did it. Rahab didn't just talk about it. She didn't kind of hatch a plan and then not go through with it. She did it. We should be like that. We should be people. Yes, we need to use words. Words are important. But our actions should actually prove our words and actually be stronger than our words. I saw something on Facebook this week by a friend of mine called Digger. And I thought, I'm going to use that quote. Fitted this talk perfectly. It was a quote by Winston Churchill, and he said this: I no longer listen to what people say, I just watch what they do, because behaviour never lies. If we make a promise to someone, we should do everything we can to fulfil that promise. Now, I know sometimes things get in the way, I know that, but then we should inform that person of why and apologise. We should be people whose lives reflect what Jesus has done. It's pointless us standing here on a Sunday and saying, live this way, it's the best way, and then living completely differently Monday to Saturday. You might get away with it for a while, But listen, if our actions don't match our words, sooner or later our words will lose all credibility. All credibility. She didn't just talk about it, she did it. And she did it right. Come on, what film's this? Terminator. Now what did Terminator say there? What's he saying there? Does anyone know the line? Okay. I'm going to do my best Terminator impression. He said, sorry, I'm just putting my phone on there so I've got the time right. He said, come with me if you want to live. Let me do it again. Come with me if you want to live. That was quite good, wasn't it? Yeah. You know, my wife once kicked me out for doing really bad Terminator impressions. But don't worry, I'll return. Oh no, I've got that wrong again. So yeah, come with me if you want to live. Listen, there are loads of different ways Rahab could have showed the Israelite army, loads of different ways, that they could have showed the Israelite army, this is my house. When you come in and take Jericho, spare my house. But the Israelites said, this is the way you've got to do it. Put a red rope out your window, and when our army comes in and takes Jericho, we will spare your house. Jesus is a little bit like Arnold Schwarzenegger in Terminator. Jesus says the exact same thing. Come with me if you want to live. There is one way. Listen, in the world today, there are often two theories about God. One is that there is no God, and two is that you believe any God you want, whatever's true for you. Okay, that's two kind of main views in God in the Western world, especially today. It's a different story over in the Far East, by the way. You might have seen some of these stats. There are now more Christians in China than there are members of the Chinese Communist Party. Think of that. The growth of Christianity in South Korea is now so dramatic. The United Nations have reclassified South Korea from being a Buddhist country to a Christian country. Think of that. Church might be a little bit dead in England, but I tell you what, look at some things around the world, it's frightening. Anyway, there is no God, or believe what you like about any God. But the Bible says this, there is only one name under heaven by which you can be saved. Jesus said, I am the only way. Follow me if you want to live. I'm sure he spoke in an American accent as well. If you're here today and you haven't chosen to follow him, let me promise you this. I didn't used to believe this stuff either. But I gave it a go. Just stuck my toe in, a little bit, and thought, that kind of was alright. Went in a bit deeper. I found it to work. Abundant life, best life, guaranteed place in heaven. The only way. Let me just throw that challenge out to you. If you're not a follower of him. And if you are a follower of him, there's a challenge for this as well. Because sometimes we try and do things our way. We believe in God, and we believe in Jesus, we read the Bible and all of that, but then something crops up and we think, I've got to sort this. Well, yes, as we've said already, there's always something for you to do. God normally does it in partnership, but do it his way. Do it the way the Bible describes it works. She did it right. Film? Trainspotting. Well done, Dave. You watch too many of the wrong films. I've really noticed that from this job. Next time I come around yours, I know what we're watching. So, this is Trainspotting. The boys and girls in Trainspotting definitely needed some rehab. They live chaotic, wild, crazy lifestyles. The old Rahab would have felt right at home with these guys, I'm sure. If you read the story, you've seen, not only is she a prostitute, but as we've already said, she actually lied as well. She lied. It's recorded in the Bible. Imagine having a story of yours in the Bible, the one where you lied, by the way. You'd be like, oh, thanks God, of all the stories you could have put in there. She lied. So does Rahab need some rehab? Interesting enough, when you read this story, nowhere do you see the Bible condone her lying, but nowhere in that story do you see God condemning her lying. That's interesting because elsewhere you read lying is clearly a sin. And there are far cleverer people who've studied this story than me who tussle with this. She didn't lie to God. She didn't lie to someone good. She lied to some men who were with evil intent. And she lied to them. There's a famous Christian called Corrie ten Boom, who during World War II used to hide Jewish people in her house, and when the Nazis came knocking, she would lie to them and say, they're not in my house. If you meet her in heaven, you can have the conversation with her about whether she was right or wrong to do that. But she lied to the Nazis. In a very similar way, to protect good, Rahab lied to bad. I'm not condemning or condoning that either, but neither does the Bible in that particular passage. But let me say this. We've all got a past. We've all got a history. And maybe it's just me. We've all told some lies, or maybe it's just me. But when you come to God, as Rahab clearly did that day, your past is wiped clean like that, at that exact point. Everything is wiped clean at that point. So yes, she was a prostitute. Dave's favourite film. Anyone know what it is?
Pretty Woman.
Pretty Woman. You see, Rahab didn't stay a prostitute. The Bible doesn't hide it. Yes, she was a prostitute, right? But even then, she was still more than that. She wasn't just that. But when she came to the King, the real King, the true King, Jesus, you become son or daughter of that King. She became a princess. Not a princess in the eyes of the world. Not a princess, in Buckingham Palace, but God's princess. He will be with her always. And when she's died, which she has now obviously, she's with him forever in heaven, in his palace. So yeah, Rahab did need a little bit of rehab. She had done things wrong in her life. But who hasn't? Who hasn't? So here's my final challenge, and I am finishing there. So the band, if you want to start coming up, because we've probably got time to do another song or two. And I just feel, guys, I love the worship, it was great. I just feel I want to finish with something really celebratory. So yeah, I want to come to the front and say, this needs to be something about God and Jesus and something deep and spiritual. But let's do something loud and fast as well, because I really want to celebrate who Jesus is and what he's done for us. So yes, we do need a little bit of rehab. We do need cleaning up a little bit. We've all got things wrong. We know that. But don't wait until you've cleaned yourself up. Don't wait until you're a little bit better to go to God. Rahab didn't stop being a prostitute for a while. Her chance was there and then. The Israelite spies were right in front of her. This was her opportunity. I believe from God. I believe God ordained the whole thing. God knew her faith and wanted to give her opportunity. Listen, you are here today. This can be your opportunity. You can seize the day just like Rahab did. Don't wait till you're good enough, because we'll never really be good enough. Choose God today, and he will gently put you through rehab. He will gently change you. He will gently clean you up. He will gently make you more like him, so that your actions do match these words.